It started as one of those mornings that felt almost cinematic in their stillness. The kind where sunlight softly filters through the curtains and life feels almost peaceful. I had been waiting for this day for years, my daughter's wedding day. Every mother dreams of that moment, to see her child in a white dress, walking toward a new life. I had planned everything down to the smallest detail. The flowers, the seating, even the little lace decorations on the chairs. All of it had pieces of my heart sewn into them. But that piece shattered the moment my phone buzzed. At first, I didn't even look. I was too busy helping the caterers set up outside. The morning rush was full of instructions. Please place those at the back. No, not that shade of pink. The photographer will arrive at 11. My phone kept vibrating in my pocket, and I remember feeling slightly irritated, thinking it was just another guest asking about directions. Finally, I pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and froze. The message was from an unknown number. It read, "Don't go to your daughter's wedding. Run!" At first I thought it was some kind of sick joke, maybe spam, or one of those cruel prank messages that float around. But something about those words, the bluntness, the urgency, sent a strange chill through me. It wasn't just the words themselves, but the timing. Why now? Why today of all days? I remember staring at the message for several seconds, feeling my heart thump faster than I wanted to admit. Then I laughed nervously and brushed it off. Some idiot trying to scare people, I told myself. Still, the unease lingered. The message wasn't threatening in a typical way. No details, no explanation. But the fear it planted began to grow quietly in the back of my mind. I went back to the decorations, trying to keep my focus. My daughter Sarah was upstairs getting ready. She was radiant that morning, calm, composed, glowing in a way only brides do. I had raised her mostly on my own. Her father left when she was just 5. It wasn't an easy life, but we made it work. I had promised her I would give her the best I could, even if I had to do it alone. Seeing her so happy that morning filled me with pride and a bittersweet ache. Around 11, when the noise of preparations filled the air, I checked my phone again. A second message had arrived. "You have no idea what's waiting for you there. Please, just don't go." This time my stomach dropped. The same number, no name. No clue who it was. I tried calling, hands trembling slightly. The phone rang once, twice, and then a click. Someone answered. At first, there was only silence. Then breathing, slow, controlled breathing. Not panicked, not hesitant, just watching. "Who is this?" I said, trying to sound stern. "If this is a joke, it's not funny." More silence. And then a whisper. Calm. Measured. Almost emotionless. "He's not who you think he is." And then the line went dead. I remember standing there, completely still. My hand holding the phone felt suddenly heavy. Those words kept echoing in my head. "He's not who you think he is." What did that mean? Was it about Sarah's fiancé, Imran? Or was it something else entirely? I called back, but the number was unreachable. My chest tightened with a wave of unease that I couldn't shake off. Still, I had to keep my composure. People depended on me. Family, guests, staff. And my daughter, she couldn't see her mother panic on her wedding day. But the voice, that calm whisper, it didn't leave me. By afternoon, everything was ready. Guests started to arrive, and laughter filled the garden. The venue looked beautiful, exactly as Sarah had dreamed. I kept checking my phone every few minutes, hoping maybe the person would call back, or that I'd receive some kind of explanation. Nothing. Only that silence that seemed to hum underneath the music and chatter around me. Then something else started to bother me. Imran's family seemed tense, not in a normal pre-wedding way, but watchful. They avoided eye contact, whispering among themselves. His mother, who had always been warm and polite before, barely acknowledged me that day. I brushed it off at first, assuming it was just nerves, but somewhere deep inside, that same unease began to pulse stronger. When Sarah walked down the aisle, I felt tears sting my eyes. My little girl, my brave, sweet Sarah. She looked beautiful, but I noticed something. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. There was something there, a hesitation, a flicker of doubt. It was small, but I knew her well enough to sense it. During the vows, she kept glancing at Imran like she was searching for reassurance and not finding it. Then, right before the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, I saw a man at the far end of the garden, standing near the entrance, half hidden behind the guests. He wasn't dressed like everyone else. No suit, no tie. Just a plain shirt and dark jacket. His eyes were locked on me. And in that instant, my phone buzzed again. I looked down. A new message from the same number. "It's not too late to stop this. He's lying to both of you." I looked up again, but the man was gone. The ceremony ended. Applause, laughter, cheers. Everything looked perfect to the outside world. But inside, my heart was unraveling. I needed answers. I stepped aside, pretending to take a call, and tried ringing that number again. This time, the call didn't even connect. I remember standing by the side of the garden, holding my phone to my chest, feeling completely torn. Do I tell Sarah? Do I stop the wedding? What if it's all a mistake? Or worse, someone trying to ruin her happiness out of jealousy? And yet, what if it wasn't? The reception went on as planned. People danced, music played, photos were taken. But I wasn't really there. My eyes kept scanning the crowd, looking for that man again. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. But there were no more messages that day. It was late evening when I finally saw something that made my blood run cold. Imran's uncle, a man I had met only twice before, was speaking quietly to a waiter near the back of the tent. I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't seen him slip an envelope into the waiter's hand. The waiter looked uneasy, nodded, and quickly walked out toward the parking area. Something about that moment felt off. I didn't know what it was, but every instinct in me screamed that something was wrong. I excused myself from a group of guests and followed from a distance. The waiter went behind the catering truck, opened the envelope, and took out a small flash drive. He tucked it into his vest pocket and looked around nervously. When he saw me, he froze. I tried to keep my voice calm. "It's all right," I said softly. "I just need to know what's going on." He hesitated, eyes darting toward the venue. "I was told to give this to someone," he whispered. "After the dinner. I don't know who. To give it to who?" I asked. He shook his head. "Just a man in a gray jacket. He said it's about the bride's mother." My breath caught in my throat. About me? Before I could ask more, the waiter got spooked and hurried away, disappearing into the crowd. That night, after the reception ended and the newlyweds had left for their honeymoon suite, I sat alone in my car. The noise of the day had faded, but the silence felt heavier than ever. I couldn't get the voice out of my mind. I couldn't forget that flash drive, the stranger, or the words, "He's not who you think he is." I felt fear, yes, but underneath it, a quiet anger. Whoever was behind this had chosen the worst day of my life to play their game. Or maybe, to warn me. Either way, I needed to know the truth. When I reached home, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. It contained only one video file. It was labeled simply, "For her eyes only." The screen flickered, and what I saw next changed everything. When I clicked play, the video opened with a static screen, that faint crackling sound that always makes you uneasy, as if something is about to surface from the dark. For a few seconds there was nothing but grainy gray. Then the picture steadied, and I saw a man sitting in a dimly lit room. He looked tired, maybe mid-40s, with eyes that carried a kind of exhausted honesty. He spoke directly to the camera. "If you're watching this," he said slowly, "then you're the woman they've been trying to silence. I don't have much time. You don't know me, but I know what they've done to you, and what they're planning next." I remember my pulse thudding in my ears. My first instinct was disbelief. It sounded like the beginning of some conspiracy theory, the kind that only makes sense to the person talking. But then he said a name that made the air leave my lungs. Imran Malik. I froze. "My daughter's husband," the man continued. "I used to work for his company. I thought he was a good man, honest, decent. But there's another side to him, the one his family hides, the one you're never supposed to see. I found out the truth 2 years ago, and they ruined my life for it. He leaned closer to the camera, his voice trembling slightly now. He marries for money. He targets women from wealthy or stable families. It's not love, it's business. Your daughter is next. He's done this before. And every time it ends the same way. The woman signs over property, investments, assets, and then something happens. A car accident, a robbery, a sudden illness. I wanted to stop the video right there. My hands shook so badly that the mouse trembled against the table. I couldn't breathe. But I kept watching. The man sighed deeply. I have proof. Transactions, fake accounts, messages, everything. I hid them on this drive because they're watching me. If you want to protect your daughter, you can't go to the police yet. You can't trust anyone connected to him. They'll know. Just act normal and wait for my call. Then the screen went black. For a few moments, I just sat there, staring at my reflection on the dark screen. My body felt numb. Every word he said echoed through my head, louder and louder, until all I could hear was the ringing in my ears. Imran, the man who had promised my daughter a lifetime of love, who had held her hands in front of hundreds of people just hours ago, was a fraud? A predator? No, it couldn't be true. I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe the man in the video was lying. Maybe someone wanted to destroy Imran's reputation. Maybe the messages were from him, trying to scare us. My mind kept spinning, clinging to every possibility that didn't end with my daughter's heart being shattered. But then I remembered his mother's strange behavior that morning, and how Imran's uncle had been so tense all day. I remembered the whisper on the phone. He's not who you think he is. The pieces began fitting together in ways I didn't want them to. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window staring at the quiet street outside, thinking about the years I had spent protecting Sarah, the sleepless nights, the small sacrifices, the countless ways I tried to make up for her missing father. And now, when she was supposed to start a new life, I was being told that the man she married could destroy her. I knew I couldn't confront him yet. Not without proof, so I did what any mother would. I began watching quietly. Over the next week, I noticed things I hadn't seen before. Subtle things. Imran suddenly taking long business calls late at night, stepping out of the room whenever Sarah walked in. His phone always face down on the table. And Sarah, she looked happy, but I could see little cracks forming. The way she avoided eye contact when I asked if everything was fine. The faint tiredness beneath her smile. One evening I went to visit them unannounced. Sarah opened the door with surprise and nervous excitement, as if she hadn't expected me so soon. The apartment was spotless, almost too spotless, as if someone had cleaned in a hurry. Imran was in the living room, and when he saw me, that charming smile appeared instantly. But something about it felt wrong. Too polished, too controlled. "Ami, what a surprise," he said warmly. "We were just about to have dinner." I forced a smile. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Never," he said, guiding me to the sofa. "Sarah, get Ami some tea." As she went to the kitchen, I studied him. His movements were confident, his tone smooth, but there was a flicker of impatience in his eyes. Like he was measuring the moment, calculating something. While Sarah prepared tea, I pretended to admire a photo frame on the shelf. It was their wedding picture. Behind it, I noticed a small envelope sticking out, half hidden. I slipped it out quietly when his back was turned. Inside were printed screenshots of online transactions, large amounts, different accounts, none of them under Imran's name. My stomach tightened. That night, after returning home, I looked up one of the account numbers online. It traced back to an offshore investment firm, one known for handling confidential transfers. I didn't know much about finance, but I knew enough to understand that something wasn't right. Days passed. I didn't tell Sarah what I had found. I needed to be sure. I reached out to the man from the video through the same number that had texted me. This time the message went through. I wrote, "I saw the video. I need to know everything." No reply came that day, or the next. Then, late one night, a message appeared. We need to meet. Somewhere quiet. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., behind the old library. The next evening, I parked near the library, an old, nearly abandoned building on the edge of town. It was raining lightly, the kind of drizzle that blurs the world and makes every sound feel distant. I waited, scanning every passing figure. He arrived 10 minutes late. Same man from the video. Weary eyes, nervous glances, clutching a small folder under his arm. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. I wasn't sure you'd believe me. I still don't know if I do, I replied honestly. But if what you're saying is true, I need proof. He nodded and handed me the folder. Everything's in here. Bank statements, photos, recordings. You'll see for yourself. He's been planning this for months. Your daughter's inheritance, the property under her name, it's all he cares about. I opened the folder slightly, enough to see documents, printed messages, screenshots of what looked like Imran's emails to someone named Farah. The messages were personal. Too personal. When I looked up, the man's expression had softened. You remind me of my mother, he said quietly. She believed people could change. I used to think that too, but men like him, they never do. Before I could ask more, he turned and walked away into the rain. I stood there, folder clutched against my chest, feeling the cold seep through my clothes. I didn't chase him. Something about his words, his tone, told me this was the last time I'd see him. That night, I read every page. The evidence was overwhelming. Multiple marriages, different women, each from families with assets or businesses. Each one had accidents shortly after transferring joint ownership. I found records of insurance claims, property deeds, and hidden communication with his family arranging fake legal documents. And the worst part, I found photos of Sarah. Recent ones. Surveillance shots taken from afar. Someone had been watching her even before the wedding. I sat there for hours, numb, staring at the papers that confirmed every mother's nightmare, that the man her daughter trusted was a predator wearing a charming mask. But anger has a strange way of bringing clarity. For days I had felt powerless, frightened, lost in uncertainty. Now for the first time I felt steady. The fear slowly hardened into something sharper, purpose. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to run to the police yet. I was going to do what the message had told me from the beginning. Stay calm and wait for the right moment. The next morning I went to visit Sarah again. This time, I carried the folder with me, though I didn't show it. I watched her closely, how she laughed too quickly when I mentioned Imran, how her hands fidgeted as she poured tea. When I asked if everything was fine, she looked away and said softly, He's been different lately, distant. I wanted to hug her, to tell her everything, but I didn't, not yet. The truth had to come from him, in his own words, and I was going to make sure of it. That evening, I sent Imran a message from an unknown number, mimicking the same tone that had once terrified me. I know everything about you. Meet me tomorrow or she will. No response came immediately, but I knew he'd read it. And for the first time since that dreadful wedding morning, I smiled. Not out of joy, but out of calm, quiet resolve. He had built his power on lies and silence. I was about to turn both against him. The next chapter of this story wouldn't be written in panic. It would be written in patience. Because revenge, the kind that heals instead of destroys, doesn't come from rage. It comes from calm. The next morning came wrapped in a heavy stillness, the kind that follows after a storm, where the air feels clearer, but the ground beneath you still trembles slightly. I had spent the night preparing, thinking through every possible path this confrontation could take. There would be no yelling, no chaos, just truth and consequences. When I woke, the first thing I did was check my phone. Imran had replied, just one line. Who is this? I typed back, someone who knows what you did. Meet me at 5 p.m. at the same cafe where you proposed to Sarah. He didn't respond. But he would come. Men like him always do. Not because they're brave, but because they can't bear the thought of losing control. That day felt endless. Every hour stretched thin with waiting. I didn't tell Sarah where I was going. She thought I was running errands, and I let her believe that. I couldn't involve her yet. The truth, when it came, had to land cleanly. No shadows, no doubts. At exactly 5, I was sitting in a corner booth of that cafe, a quiet place near the lake where I had once seen my daughter glowing with love and hope. The air smelled faintly of roasted coffee and rain. I had placed the folder, the evidence, beside my cup. A single napkin covered it. 15 minutes later, Imran walked in. He looked confident, as always. Crisp shirt, expensive watch, the same calm smile that had once fooled me. But when his eyes met mine, I saw something else there. Wariness, maybe even fear. He approached slowly, pretending to be surprised. "Ami, you're the one who wanted to meet?" I smiled faintly. "Sit down, Imran. Let's not waste time pretending." He hesitated for a moment before sitting across from me. "I don't understand. What's this about?" I slid the folder toward him. The napkin slipped aside just enough for him to see the documents inside. Bank records, photos, printed messages. His expression didn't change much, but his eyes, they flickered quick as lightning, just for a second, but I caught it. "I think you do understand," I said softly. "And I think you know exactly what you've done." He leaned back, forcing a small laugh. "Ami, I think someone is trying to confuse you. These look fake. You can't believe everything you find online." "I don't believe what I find online," I interrupted gently. "I believe what I see with my own eyes. And what I've seen, Imran, tells me that my daughter married a man who sees marriage as a transaction. You collect trust, then trade it for profit." The mask slipped a little. He leaned forward, voice low. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know enough," I replied, my tone steady. "Enough to know that you have offshore accounts. Enough to know that you've done this before, and enough to know that you didn't marry my daughter for love." He stared at me, the charming calm fading into something colder. "You think you can ruin me with this? You have no proof that will hold in court, and even if you did, Sarah won't believe you." I took a sip of my tea, unhurried. "You're right. She won't believe me, not yet. That's why I recorded this conversation. And before I came here, I sent copies of that folder to 3 different people, including a lawyer. If anything happens to me, they'll know exactly where to send it." He froze. The silence between us stretched thin, fragile, electric. He tried to smile again, but it didn't reach his eyes this time. "You're clever," he said finally. "I'll give you that. What do you want?" I set the cup down. "I want you to leave her." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Just like that?" "Not just like that," I said. "You'll tell her yourself. You'll make it look like your decision. You'll give her a reason, something believable but harmless. And then when you're gone, you'll stay gone. Because if you don't..." I paused, looking at him with quiet certainty. "You'll lose everything you've stolen, and your family will know exactly what kind of man you really are." He stared at me for a long time, weighing his options. I could almost see the calculations behind his eyes, the shifting of pride, greed, and fear. Finally, he exhaled slowly. "You think you've won," he said softly. "But people like me, we always come back," I smiled gently. "Maybe, but not to her. Not this time." When he stood up to leave, I didn't stop him. I watched him walk out of the cafe, shoulders stiff, his confidence fractured. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked small. That night, I told Sarah that Imran had called me, saying he needed some time away to think about things. She was confused, a little hurt, but she didn't panic. I think a part of her already knew something wasn't right between them. Sometimes the heart senses the truth before the mind can accept it. 2 days later, he was gone. He left a note, something vague about needing space, personal growth, not being ready for responsibility. I recognized the tone. It was the same polished script he'd probably used before with other women, but it didn't matter anymore. Sarah cried for weeks. I stayed by her side, holding her hand through every quiet night and every morning that started with tears. I didn't tell her the full truth, not yet. She needed time to heal from the illusion before facing the betrayal. Healing requires truth, but it also requires readiness. Then one evening, as we sat by the window watching the sunset, she turned to me and said softly, "Ami, did you ever feel like someone you loved wasn't who they seemed to be?" Her words pierced deeper than she knew. I took her hand and smiled gently. "Yes, my love. But the truth is, people can only hide their real selves for so long. Sooner or later, their mask starts to crack." She nodded quietly, eyes glistening. I could see strength slowly returning. The kind of strength that only comes after heartbreak. Weeks turned into months. Life started to settle again. Sarah began working at a design firm, focusing on her career, her dreams. She smiled more often, laughed a little louder. The shadow of Imran slowly faded from her world. But for me, it wasn't over. Not yet. One evening, I received another message from the unknown number, the same one that had started it all. "He's trying again. New name, new city. Thought you should know." There was no signature, no details. But it was enough. I understood what it meant. Imran hadn't learned. He was still hunting, still playing the same cruel game with someone else's life. I could have ignored it. I could have let karma take its course. But that's not what a mother does. Revenge, when done right, isn't about rage. It's about justice wrapped in patience. So I gathered everything. The documents, the recordings, the correspondence, and handed them over to a journalist I trusted. Someone with integrity. I didn't need fame or headlines. I just wanted the truth out there. I wanted to stop him before another woman suffered what my daughter almost did. The report aired quietly, a small investigative segment that exposed fraudulent marriages tied to a network of financial schemes. Names weren't mentioned, but those who needed to know, knew. Imran's business collapsed within weeks. His accounts were frozen. His family disowned him publicly to save themselves. I watched from afar, not with joy, but with calm satisfaction, the kind that comes when justice breathes quietly instead of shouting. Sarah never found out the full story until a year later. One evening, when she was finally strong again, I told her everything, every message, every secret, every risk. She listened in silence, tears in her eyes, not from pain, but from realization. "You went through all that alone?" she whispered. I smiled. A mother's love doesn't announce itself, Beta. It just moves quietly in the background, fixing what needs to be fixed. She hugged me then, tighter than she had in years. And for the first time, I felt peace. Not just that my daughter was safe, but that the storm had finally passed. Months later, she met someone new. A kind, simple man who treated her with respect. No grand gestures, no false promises, just genuine kindness, the kind that stays. Sometimes, when I sit by the same window and watch her laughter fill our home again, I think about how close we came to losing it all. How one message, one warning, had changed everything. I still don't know who sent it. Maybe the man from the video, maybe someone else entirely, but whoever it was, I owe them more than thanks. Because of them, my daughter got her life back. And as for Imran, last I heard he had left the country. No business, no family, no fortune. Just a trail of his own choices catching up to him. Some would call that karma. I call it quiet justice. The kind that doesn't need applause, just the truth. Now, whenever I get a message from an unknown number, I don't feel fear anymore. I simply smile, because I've learned that sometimes the universe whispers warnings before it shouts consequences. And as for me, I've learned something even deeper. That revenge doesn't have to be loud, or cruel, or fast. The calmest revenge is the one that lets truth do the work. It waits, it watches, and when the moment is right, it simply reveals what was always there. That's how peace returns, not by erasing pain, but by turning it into wisdom. And that's why I share this story with you. Not to celebrate revenge, but to remind you that silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's strategy, sometimes it's strength. If you ever find yourself wronged, Remember, you don't need to shout. You don't need to destroy. You just need to stay calm, stay patient, and let the truth walk into the light on its own. Because real revenge, the kind that truly heals, is not about breaking others. It's about reclaiming your peace, and that is my calm revenge. So if you found something in this story that spoke to you, if you felt even a flicker of strength in the quiet, then do me one small favor. Like this video, share it with someone who needs courage, and subscribe to My Calm Revenge for more stories like this one. Stories that remind us that even in our darkest moments, calmness can still be the sharpest weapon of all.